Google Pixel Watch review. I've been seeing a lot of negative press about the Google Pixel Watch lately. Every time I flip through my feed, I see headlines and comments about how this watch is a total mess. I've worn the Pixel Watch on my wrist every day since Google sent us a unit prior to launch, and I can honestly say that I don't get it. Just so we're clear, I don't get the negativity aimed at the watch, as I think it's absolutely terrific. So let's try to explore what the Pixel Watch actually is in correlation to where the Android smartwatch world was prior to its release. As someone who was chastised for wearing a Pebble watch in 2013, I've basically seen and worn just about every type of wearable time-telling device you can fathom. I believe that the Pixel Watch is currently already the best smartwatch on Android. It isn't perfect by any means, but there is nothing out there for Android quite like this. I wrote an article earlier this year talking about my early smartwatch journey and why the Apple Watch has dominated the scene since then. At the time, the Pixel Watch still was just a long-tenured rumor stuck in the mill. Whenever I was on Android over the last few years, either an Amazfit, Galaxy Watch, or a Fossil Watch occupied the spot on my wrist. They all functioned in a way that was beneficial to me to keep around. But I never felt immersed with those watches in my day-to-day life. I talked in that article about how the Apple Watch was a perfect blend of many things that just worked and looked good while doing it. When I put that Pixel Watch on my wrist, I quickly began feeling some of those same vibes. I'm sure someone out there is thinking to themselves that I'm just brand-stricken with the big two. However, there's more to that than meets the eye when it comes to these products. Actually, it's exactly what the eye sees that is the first difference between the Pixel Watch and a lot of other watches for Android. One of the original core functions a smartwatch is useful for is to quickly glance at a notification or text message. The way a watch displays and has the user interact with those said messages is of high importance to me. As much as I love the 1-month battery life of watches like the Mavoitic Watch GTH or the Halo RS4, reading any legible text is a major headache on those things that drove me to take them off. That's a consistent trade-off for those types of watches. When you move over to the field the Pixel competes with, watches like the Fossil Gen 5e and the Galaxy Watch that I reviewed in recent years present information much more neatly than those aforementioned cheaper watches. However, the way the user interacts with that information still varies greatly on these more expensive watches. Back in the early days of the Gear watches, Samsung introduced a rotating bezel that in theory could be competitive to the crown found on the Apple Watch and now the Pixel Watch. The Fossil Watch is more of a traditional smartwatch interaction, simply relying on a finger for navigating. While neither of those are terrible methods of using a smartwatch, I have always resonated towards scrolling with the crown. Apple has thoroughly convinced me over the years that this is the most effective manner of navigating information in an allotted small space. I'm terribly glad that Google blatantly copied the Apple Watch in this manner. There must have been some market research that led them to make this design choice. From my own anecdotal experience after spending equal amounts of years with the spinning bezel and a crown on my wrist, I found myself naturally at ease utilizing the crown's navigation, whereas the spinning bezel settled into a secondary method behind my finger on the S2 and Galaxy Watch. However, the crown on the Pixel Watch doesn't feel anything like the one on the Apple Watches. There's a definite lack of premium touch to the material used for this crown. Every time I press into it, there's this slight creaking noise that emits. I don't find the reflective, glossy nature of the crown to help the cause either, as it only adds to the flimsy or it exudes. Using the competitors as an example, the buds on the Galaxy Watch have a nice solid texture on it. The crown on Apple Watches are usually matte and extraordinarily smooth to operate. The minute your finger scrolls on it, you feel as if you were using something well made. I sadly don't have that impression with the bud and crown on the Pixel Watch. What I'm trying to explain is that while this watch doesn't win in many categories against the competition, the actual experience of interacting with this type of gadget is better on this Pixel Watch than on any of the competitors that are capable of pairing with Android. It's not light years better than other premium smartwatches like the Galaxy Watch, but to me it does make a big difference in how I feel about the watch that I wear. While we're on the topic of the display, the 41mm diameter is the single model that is offered by Google in their first foray into this new lineup. That means the AMOLED screen on my watch is the only size a Pixel Watch offers. It has a 320 ppi count that keeps text sharp enough to read at an arm's distance. I think the colors and saturation are pretty good for what it is. I can't say that my eyes enjoyed looking at personal images as backgrounds more on the Pixel Watch than I did on the Apple Watch SE, but they are also plenty acceptable from a palette standpoint here. The watch also gets moderately bright at max brightness. I never once had a difficult time viewing the watch face even with adaptive brightness managing it. I will give this watch praise as the AMOLED technology helps blend the black with the somewhat large bezels around the watch face. At first glance, it's hard to even notice it when using a black watch face. The bezels didn't bother me much as I did prefer the smaller footprint the Pixel Watch had on my wrist. If that's what it took to keep the watch at this size instead of having an edge-to-edge display, I think it was the better choice. It is definitely one of the smaller frames that I've had on my wrist over the years. This is one of the reasons why I found the Pixel Watch to be exceedingly comfortable to wear. I paired it with an OEM stretch band, and some days I don't even feel the watch on me. This is something that has grown in the opposite direction for round Android watches. Watches have become larger and bulkier. Of course, this is all subjective to the wearer as many men like 44mm and larger watches. I personally find a lot of versatility for customers of all sizes and gender with the smaller sized Apple Watches and now the Pixel Watch. The one thing I still don't know if I like or dislike is the mechanism for the clasp that changes the watch bands. It requires users to kind of learn the little trick it takes to rotate in order to get it working. The first 5 minutes were truly frustrating for me. Once you get the handle of it, the method does feel a little neat to pull off. However, I don't think this is something that was necessary. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Sure, Apple patented a great way to change bands, but the pin method on every other watch works perfectly fine. By making another proprietary method, watch wearers now have to purchase brand new straps with that proprietary mechanism. If it was a truly better and more efficient way of changing the bands, then I would be all for it. Months later, I still don't see it and would have preferred the more traditional method. I don't gravitate towards the smooth glass appearance that falls off like a waterfall on the display. I'm a bit of a traditionalist and a Seamaster admirer, so having some sort of physical bezel on a round watch face is more attractive in appearance to me. I get why Google simply followed the Apple Watch playbook and just threw a round screen on top of a frame. But a square watch can get away with that look a bit easier. This is where I feel Samsung, through their many generations of tinkering with their bezel, and an actual watch company like Fossil, have a better understanding of round watch design.